Hey, what is up YouTube? So today I'll be talking about the new CI instacker Archmage Ice Nova Frostbolts Hierophant build, and pretty much the transition point from a life-based character to a CI one. And this is going to be that point in which I transition. I tested it out yesterday and I'll give my feedback on it. But first and foremost, before I talk about the differences, how I designed the build, it's going to be the non-negotiables. And the two things that are going to be important for me is I'm not willing to play a 2-button build, no Arcanist Brand, no self-cast Frostbolts. It's going to be kitavas Thirst. Secondly, I'll be using the Militant Faith Timeless Jewel with the reduced mana cost due to the recent changes, and I don't think the build will feel good without this. So with that being said, what is the difference? So first and foremost, I think we'll probably want to talk about the damage. So damage wise, it's stacking based on POE numbers is 50% more damage with some conditionals like brittle ground based on how I designed it. And when it comes to the defenses, scaling differences, so both the builds have the generic Enfeeble, Sigil, Frost Shield, Crit Mitigation. That's standard, it didn't change. For the CI build, we have 2000 energy leech per second. Based on POE numbers, it is very, very high. ES hit on leech, but if you see the calcs for Ice Nova Frostbolts, you can see that maximum leech rate against a single target can go up to 9145 per second across 33 casts as we ramp up. So that's that. For ES recovery rate, we currently have 900 ES per second based on the POE numbers, and that's through Zealot's Oath. So all the life regen is converted to ES regen, which is based off the percentage of the max energy shield, which is very big. Of course, CI build, immune to chaos, you take 0 chaos damage. Dots on hits, everything 0. So we currently have around 20,000 armor, and it's probably weaker against bigger hits due to the scaling of armor. And we have the less damage per int implicit on the chest. So that is going to be the ether implicit, I believe. 1% less damage taken per 210 int, and it's only going to get better as you scale up. Lastly, it's going to be ailment immunity with stormshroud. Previously on the light-based version, we didn't have dual sockets to spare, and it is very, very tight on that. So we didn't have ailment immunity, we only have reduced effect and things like that. So for the light-based variant, it has some benefits, which is the Phys conversion. So it had stronger physical mitigation, and that is a static flat 45% physical damage is mitigated completely due to the lightning coil melding combination, and of course what I mentioned earlier, melding for all things all elemental mitigation on hits, dots, and everything. And this is really, really huge because it's 90% melding that we're solving here, that we're using. So what was the cost for me to swap? So I swapped yesterday, and it cost me about 100 divines, but you can do it with roughly probably 50 divines, but I wouldn't recommend it. I spent a lot on Grand Eldritch Ichors, conflict orbs, build chaos orbs, which are now 5 divines by the way, which is not required. So is it better? End of the day. Honestly, it is not very much different. I'm gonna caveat for the current iteration of investment. So the speed at which the boss dies is noticeably faster, but I'm conditionally dying to a lot more in maps due to the environmental effects. There's a lot of on-death mechanics in the maps, like apparition spawn, you get the barriers, you get the volatile cores. And without the melding, you can't take it as much, because a lot of the less damage multipliers that we use are all application on the monster, but once they are gone, we really lack a lot of that mitigation. So once you tick a lot of the boxes off, previously what melding could have helped tank is now not possible with the current state of the build in this iteration without the melding. So I feel squishier in some maps in certain situations. So personally, I would recommend staying with the light-based variant until further investment is made and tested. TLDR, POE defense is higher, POE offense is higher. The damage feels higher as well than light-based variant, but the defense feels lower. If softcore and you're okay, you're level 100, by all means transition to this build. It's 50% more damage with 50 divine investment. So why CI in stacking? So it provides a better ceiling. Imagine this, you can scale the life base up to a certain point, and we're probably near the point where it's pretty maxed out. But with CI, that opens a whole new door. where you can scale even higher. Even though the first step might take you a little bit backwards, but with enough investment, we can keep scaling and scaling, pretty much similar to how you would scale a Deadeye bow build in the past, having your mirror weapons and so on. With in stacking, the world is your oyster. There's a lot of ways to scale in stacking. Some examples which I talk about here: Simplex Amulet, passive voices, one or three passive voices, Adorn, Forbidden Flame and Flash, Synth Rings. There's so much you can upgrade, and a lot of very expensive upgrades for that matter. So when it comes to the design options, there were actually only two that I considered, which is going to be the Incandescent Heart. Decent armor, good damage, elemental mitigation, very good synergy with CI, 20% shift from elemental to chaos, that's completely mitigated, and you get of course the unique chest corruption for 50%. However, what I found was that the POB numbers for the ES pool for the raw EHP that you have is too low with just Incandescent Heart alone, because we're using, for example, the anathemas and the kitavas thirst for that. Rare chest for ES was the second option, which is the one I chose. Much larger ES pool, you'll see in the POB later, and this is buffed through the introduction of new bases. The cons, however, is the physical mitigation against big hits, and the raw mitigation is weaker with this build as compared to Incandescent Heart. The third, I think, is going to be the endgame option, is going to be Global Defense. Grasping Mill is going to be recombinated onto the Twilight Regalia base. So I think that's going to be the endgame build, but I have not seen that yet. I think I see some on the market for somewhere around 50 divines currently. So Fractured Global Defense on Twilight Regalias as a potential option, but those are still not fully crafted out. Passive tree changes. So when moving to this build, the two things that's going to happen is going to be the pathing and the jewels. So let's hop into the POB. So first is going to be the pathing. So instead of pathing upwards, we now path around, and this is going to benefit the split personalities. So if you look in the tree over here, you can see in game, you can see the split personalities hovering over this line. By pathing underneath, you actually get a lot more mana and int from two split personalities across the tree. So that can be very beneficial for the build, and very cheap options for scaling that stat. Apart from that, in terms of jewels that would change, I think we talk about split personality. We're going to talk about the new jewels, which are going to of course have in on them, percentage mana and int, and then the other modifiers can be anything you want. Stormshroud, that's going to give ailment immunity through the flask now. We're going to have Corrupted Blood immunity jewel. And we're going to have the Watcher's Eye with Determination to shore up our physical mitigation. And still the two same jewels, the same combination, the same OP combination that I talked about before, Unnatural Instinct plus Light of Meaning. This time we shifted the Light of Meaning up here because we no longer need the life as we pass through here and the resistances. And instead we go through the ES nodes and you grab all the good stuff around here, Thrill Killer, and the Foresight along the way with Harrier. All really good passives for the build. And our Timeless Jewel remains the same as the previous, and we also put it in the exact same place. Apart from that, we dropped a lot of the percentage life on the tree. We're no longer scaling life, and all forms of mana recoup are now gone because Mind Over Matter is removed because it only is taken damage from mana before life. And we no longer have life base, we're purely CI, so Mind Over Matter is dropped as well. So that's that. Let's see if I missed anything. Life Leech is also removed, so the implicits on the glove, Life Leech is then removed, and that is swapped into a percent int damage, int as damage. Over here you can see the implicit, and the exarch remains the same as our nerf. Lastly, for the anathema, that is being changed from cannot be poison anathema to a percentage in anathema, and for obvious reasons we're now CI. Poison does not affect us anymore. That's free damage that we are taking. We don't take a single point, and we're immune pretty much to chaos damage. Which then talks about T17. Any form of Phys chaos, monster poison on a hit, that's now available. Now you can do those now. As for my Pantheon, I chose Solaris and Groove-Cool. We no longer use Brine King because we are stun immune with our Flask. And we're also freeze immune through Stormshroud, so that's gone now. So we switched to Solaris, which I think is a very slept-on option. Provides a lot of mitigation against especially single monsters. In the boss, if you're killing the T17s, you get 6% physical mitigation, 20% chance to take 50% less damage from areas hits, 8% reduced elemental damage if you have not been hit recently, and no extra damage from crits if you have taken a crit recently. So really, really good. You take one crit from a pack of monsters, the rest don't really crit if it's not a one-shot. And for the smaller Pantheon, we're taking Groove-Cool, so that's going to be just additional mitigation. If you hit recently, up to 5 PDR, and the enemies attack 8% slower if they hit you. So that's that for the passive tree. And for the bandits, I killed all. If you are facing elemental resist issues, you can of course use Alira. I think it's a very, very strong point. And let's hop into the gear. So the gear wise, we changed almost all the pieces of gear. The only things that remain the same are going to be your Mage Blood, your Kitavas Thirst, and one wand right now, which I'm also intending to change, to be honest. But yeah, essentially those are the only things that changed. The Bottle of Faith remains there, and I think it's better to show in the POB. So over here, the wand that I changed, I'm now using an int fractured wand. You can use a different fractured wand if you want, but essentially what we're aiming for is going to be int on the wand to be able to scale our intelligence as the int stacking build, and then the rest of the modifiers and crafting methods I use are still the same. For the Twilight Regalia, which is the one I chose, just ES on the chest, thick prefixes. Mine's not even triple T1. Essentially, I have 1000 flat ES. The most important is going to be the 1% less damage taken, because that's for all kinds of damage per 210 in, and that's going to scale as you grow your intelligence further. The suffixes, I was just using veiled orbs. I hit this one that was usable, so I kept it. It's really, really good actually on maps without, if you cannot regen ES. You can still leech, but if you cannot regenerate ES, it's actually stagnant in some fights where the boss is untargetable, like in Sanctuary. And essentially hitting this focus helps me get 40% mana and ES back, which is pretty nice. Crafted attributes, of course, the unveil on the 8% attributes would be slightly better. For the glove, we're changing to int and mana gloves. We no longer need life on these gloves, para gloves, so you want to aim for either armor ES or pure ES gloves with intelligence, and we're still using the tempo modifier for the chill damage because it's pretty efficient. For the boots, you're going to be using brittle ground because we drop crit on the wand, because we now replace one of the suffixes with in, so we lose crit chance to spells. So for that, we cover the lack of crit with brittle ground to shore up the crit chance. And we're just looking for mana, resist, and ES as the boots. So I upgraded to a paladin boots, which is has armor now, which provides me a little bit more armor, but I'll just leave the sage slippers in right now. For the amulet, it's going to be a percentage in synthesized amulet as a baseline. So this is much, much cheaper than the next option, which I'm going to show you guys. Pretty much what you're going to be aiming for is all attributes, intelligence. You can craft your own if you just buy the base. You just spam int essence, so I think it's spite, deafening spite. And once you hit all attributes T2 and above, just catalyst it, and then just craft mana, reduce mana cost, and you should be good to go. For the 2-stone ring, you can buy rings that already have these rolls on trade, or you can get mirrored rings. Essentially, your amulet, you can do the same as well. So you're going to use the reflecting mirror rings. So for the amulet, I'm just going to talk about that first. The upgrade of choice is going to be the perfect in-stacking amulet, which is going to be the simplex with percent attributes in and percentage damage per in. For the ring, I managed to snag up a Demon Knuckle power ring. So this essentially gives minus 168 life, which doesn't matter to us, but 115 in and 27 all attributes. Pity that it is not attribute catalyst, but that's all good. Probably came from a mirror in the map. For the anathema, I talked about that earlier, changed to percent int, mage blood, no change, and then for the flasks, we have a bit of changes here. So the suffixes that we're going to use is going to be avoid shock, firstly, and that's with the flask suffix alone with the 95% ink, it's going to give us the ailment immunity with stormshroud. For silver flask, we use cannot be stunned. Previously I was using crit for the crit chance, but I realized that I was getting stunned in maps because we no longer have unwavering stance. So because of this, we are able to take out Brine King, and we can also not need to spec in the ES stun threshold, which has some benefits there, I guess. So we're now stun immune and ailment immune through these suffixes. And the Quicksilver gives us curse immunity, same thing, and we're going to be using Granite Flask with armor. So you can see that one of our flasks is now granite, and one of the suffixes is percentage armor to be able to increase our physical mitigation. Flash remains the same, and the jewels I talked about earlier. So essentially that is the build. In terms of damage, it is a lot more. You can see that once I switch to my new rings, new boots, and new amulet, we actually go up to almost double the damage of the light-based variant. We're currently sitting at 156 POB DPS, but it is fairly padded. You can see that once we remove brittle ground, we drop to 82% crit chance, but regardless, our damage is still pretty massive. So that is that. I've added the ghost buff in for one of it, and you could potentially switch to 2 ghosts, but I feel like that's not necessary given the price of ghosts now is just skyrocketing with the price of power runes. And with that, the leech that I talked about earlier is really huge. As long as you're standing still and ramping on a single target, you literally cannot die unless you get one shot, which is very unlikely given that our EHP, and if our frost shield is down, we get even more tankiness for that. So that's what I wanted to talk about for the build. So TLDR, I think if you're using the light-based variant for my previous POB, my previous video, that works very similarly to what you see currently. So in the future, I'm going to upgrade and spend a lot more money. I just spent about 170 plus divines on this. I can't remember how much, 175 maybe, on this amulet, so I'm broke. I need to farm some more, and then we're going to explore other upgrade options with Adorn and Grasping Nail. So thank you so much for watching. If you guys see this video, I'm probably going to be streaming sometime soon. So catch you guys on stream, and have a good one.